Hi, I'm Brad J. Lamb, and I want to thank you all for joining me today on our sales presentation for Bauhaus Condominium. Bauhaus Condominium is our next great project brought to you by Land Development Corp. On historic Old King Street East. It's a 32-story tower. I'm very excited about this building. It's fantastic architecture by Architects Alliance, Peter Clues. Very soon, we're going to make this building available for you to buy. Now, why would anyone today want to buy a condominium in central Toronto? Toronto has some amazing things going for it. We all understand that. Pre-COVID, the amazing bars and restaurants and nightclubs and fantastic hotels, all the amenities of a world-class city, which will come back again. But in the meantime, let's talk about the fundamentals of real estate in central Toronto. First of all, immigration. So while 2020, we received about half the immigrants we'd normally receive in a year, our federal government's announced new thresholds for immigration, where we're going to move from the expected number of immigrants in 2020 was somewhere around 360,000. We received about 180,000. For the next 3 years, we're going to be looking at receiving 400, 415, and 430,000 approximately new immigrants to Canada. Now, most of those immigrants, the large percentage of those immigrants, they come to Toronto because Toronto is the epicenter of Canada. Additionally, every year, Canada has interprovincial migration. And Ontario is the largest recipient of interprovincial migration by a long shot. Toronto gets most of those new migrants, but Ontario as a whole gets almost 130,000 new migrants a year, versus British Columbia getting a little over 50,000. So in total, in the next few years, starting in 2021, we can expect well over 400,000 immigrants to Canada, of which about 130 or 40,000 of those will come to Toronto, in addition to another 130,000 immigrants coming to Ontario, of which the bulk of those come to Toronto. So what does this all mean? This means there's far more people moving to Toronto than new houses being built. And that's good for real estate. That means there'll be pressure on rental rates again, and there'll be huge pressure on sales prices. Now, let's talk about the population of Toronto and how that's changing. Right now, the population of Toronto sits around 6 or 6.3 million people. It is estimated now by federal authorities that our population is going to increase to well over 8 million people in the next 10 years. That's about another 1.7 million more people coming to Toronto. And again, all those people need homes. They either need to rent a home or need to buy a home. And that's going to put upward pressure on real estate prices, which is fantastic news for condominium investors. Now, I want to talk a little bit about recessions, because we are now arguably in the worst recession in history, at least in the last 40 or 50 years. This recession is unprecedented for anyone alive to have witnessed. It really is a deep recession. And what's happened to real estate in Toronto? Well, over this COVID recession, what's happened is real estate prices have risen. So if you look at all the recessions in the past, there's been 4 recessions, let's say, since the early 1980s. And if you look at the curve of sales prices, average sales prices in Toronto over that arc of 30, 40 years, you're going to see an incredible arc, because what you see is year after year, average prices tend to rise. There's been a few years in there where prices have fallen, but the long-term curve of average real estate prices in Toronto is astounding, and it's a trajectory straight up. So through the COVID crisis that we're still in maybe at the tail end of, average price rose to a all-time record in January of 2021 of $961,000 is the average price of a home in Toronto. Now let's talk about new condominium sales in general. So what happened last year in 2020 in new condominium sales? Well, the first thing that happened is in March and April, of course, there was very little in the way of activity, period, in real estate. But as we got into the summer, projects started to launch, and they did very well. Most of the projects that launched last year sold out quickly at very elevated prices. But the issue is, every year we need about 30,000 new condominiums sold, and we need to break ground somewhere around 30,000 new condominiums to make sure that we have enough supply for the demand of new homes. And unfortunately, in 2020, only 18,000 new condominiums were sold, which means in the coming years, we're going to have a serious shortage of housing, because if we don't sell them, we don't build them. And unfortunately, we're not going to be building the required number of homes in the condominium space to satisfy the current demand and the future demand. The last thing I want to say about pricing, and we're making this presentation mid-February, and as of mid-February, we've seen the volume of MLS resale condominiums in the 416 for sale plummet by about 20% since early January. Normally in a marketplace like Toronto, as we mature into February, we get an increase in the number of properties for sale. But this January and February, we're seeing a serious fall in the number of inventory for sale, which is now causing prices in the condo space to rise. And as I speak, most condominiums listed for sale in the 416 now are receiving multiple offers and selling for more than the asking price. In fact, we are now seeing prices in the condominium space the same or more than pre-COVID prices. Additional information for investors is that over Q4 of 2020, the number of condominiums that sold over the previous Q4 of 2019 was up almost 20%. So in COVID, in the last quarter of 2020, more resale condominiums sold than pre-COVID. It's an amazing statistic, and it shows the strength of our marketplace. Finally, the downtown condo market, there is speculation and all kinds of talk about the core of Toronto being depleted of individuals. Everyone's moving to 905. Yes, some people definitely have chosen to move out of Toronto, being short-term thinkers and not long-term thinkers. Long-term investors, which is what you should be as an investor in real estate, should know that 68% of all condominiums sold, new condominiums sold, sell in the 416. So if you look at the whole GTA, almost 70% of all condominiums sold sell downtown. All of the transit systems support the downtown. All of the infrastructure of the hotels, bars and restaurants, universities support the downtown. Anyone that believes that the downtown core of Toronto won't continue to expand and flourish is just someone who reacts to short-term thinking. It's like buying stock when the stock market's rising and selling stock when the stock market's falling. Long-term investing is always the best way to go, and the long-term investors understand, of all the things I've just talked about, that Toronto is the strongest marketplace to buy real estate in Canada, if not in North America. One last point, there's questions about the rental marketplace. So you're going to buy a condominium, you're going to rent it to a tenant, what's going to happen? Well, the first piece of good news is that any condominium that you purchase today that's from floor plans, brand new, is not subject to rent controls. So all of the carnage that happened, and yes, for 6 months of 2020, the rental market didn't have a great way. Probably an 18% reduction in the 416 rental rates. We're already seeing now in 2021 a recovery there. But the most interesting point is, despite all this, despite Airbnb no longer functioning in the City of Toronto, despite universities being closed to students, despite all the high rises in the core not being open to employment, all of these things have contributed to an oversupply of rental property. Despite all this, the vacancy rate in the 416 in the condominium market in Toronto is 0.9%. 0.9% is essentially, when it comes to vacancy rates, very, very low. In fact, it's almost zero. So imagine what's going to happen when Airbnb restarts in Toronto and the students come back to in-person learning at George Brown and U of T and Ryerson University. And of course, the high-rise buildings open up to work. There is going to be a flood of tenants re-entering the marketplace, driving rents to new highs. All of this bodes well for real estate investors in Toronto. So let's talk about Bauhaus now. This is Bauhaus, a 32-story tower that we're going to be breaking ground with in September on King Street East between Sherbourne and Parliament. Fantastic part of the original 10 blocks of Toronto. You know, again, we've gone to Architects Alliance for architecture. We've gone to the Design Agency for interior designs. This is one of the nicest buildings we've done yet, and we've done a lot of nice buildings. Very clean modernist architecture. So Bauhaus, what's Bauhaus about? Bauhaus is an architectural movement that was created in the early 20th century in Germany, and the adherence to clean modern lines was what Bauhaus was all about, certain primary colors. So that's what Bauhaus is about. Additionally, the amazing thing about Bauhaus is that every unit has a balcony, except for a very small number. The balconies are at least 6 feet deep. Our ceiling heights are a minimum of 9 feet. We are still doing some of the exposed concrete we've always done. Basically, we're adhering to the LAM standard, which by now most of you who know about my company and know about our products understand what the LAM standard means. We put in the best standard finishes so that nobody has to upgrade. You can upgrade, and we're going to have a ton of amazing upgrades for you, but the standard buyer who's really pinching pennies to get in the marketplace can rest assured that the LAM standard will give them all of the best finishes in a standard unit. So what exists around Bauhaus? Well, George Brown College is just a step away. The St. Lawrence Market is a step away. The Distillery District, the River District, the Canary District, Queen Street East, all of the bars and restaurants and exciting things that have now been created in the East End. I believe the East End of Toronto is becoming and will be more livable than the south west end of Toronto. We have many other projects we'll be bringing out in this area. We're very excited about this part of the city. One thing that's super exciting, I think, which most of you aren't going to be aware of, is the new subway line is going to stop at the intersection of King Street East and Berkeley, which is about a 10-second walk from the front door of Bauhaus. So now let's talk about the most exciting part, the floor plans, the units in the building. Because of the nature of this point tower having a small footprint of around 5,000 square feet, the units are what we call wide shallow. My favorite type of apartment, where you have a lot of window and not a lot of depth. What that allows for is a sub 500 square foot one bedroom apartment with a window in the bedroom. And that kind of apartment is a premium apartment, it's a premium rental apartment. So most of the units in this building have a ton of glass and not a lot of depth. Those are the apartments that tenants want to get. They're not the bowling alleys, but they're the sun-filled, bright type of apartments. Now, we've also run some cash flows, which will be part of our presentation. And in our cash flows, we've run all of them for the investment style units, units from 400 square feet to, say, 700 square feet. And these units are positive from a return on equity standpoint in year one, just from rent alone. 30% down, condo fees, taxes paid, your insurance paid, all your costs paid, you're going to earn somewhere around a 6 to a 6.5% return on your invested capital, which is unheard of. But our price point's great and our rent rates are great, so we're able to deliver these kind of apartments in year one that are cash flow positive. So let's talk about what all you care about, the commission. We're paying 4% commission to anyone who brings an offer that's accepted on the property. And that commission is going to be paid half on the start of construction and half on the completion of the project. What's exciting about this is we're demolishing the existing structure in September and we're putting a shovel in the ground in October. So commissions will be paid to you for sales this fall. Some other things we're offering to your buyers, which I think is exciting, is we have a very extended down payment structure. Just for you, we're allowing up to 2 years, 720 days for all your deposits to be received in cash, which makes it easier for first-time buyers and first-time investors to scrap their deposit together to get in the marketplace. So important to get in the marketplace as soon as you can. Additionally, we're allowing assignments at no cost. Also, unlike most developers in the city, we're going to let you rent your apartment when you get it during the occupancy period, and we're not going to charge you for it. So that means you can start earning cash flow day one when we deliver your apartment in occupancy. It's a huge advantage. Also, we're offering a very attractive cap levels for our 1 bedrooms, 1 and dens, 2 bedrooms, and so on, amongst the lowest in the industry, to make it easier for you to get in the marketplace at Bauhaus.